Imagine someone hands you a giant jar with a grim warning. Break its seal and unleash destruction upon the world. How could anyone ignore such a terrible threat, yet resist the burning need to peek inside? That clash between caution and curiosity is at the heart of one of Greek mythology's most enduring tales, the story of Pandora. Yet many don't realize that this so-called box was originally a large jar, or pythos. Inside, it held far more than random trinkets. It contained an entire catalogue of human suffering and one fragile force to counter them. To understand why the jar existed at all, we have to step back and see how the gods felt about mortals. Chief among them, Zeus, seethed with resentment toward humankind after Prometheus, the Titan with a fondness for mortals, gifted them fire. Fire in the ancient world was immeasurable power, warmth, the ability to cook food, and even a spark that fueled invention. None of that sat well with Zeus, who believed such privileges should remain safely in divine hands. So, in an act of divine retaliation, he devised a plan to make humanity regret its boldness forever. Hephaestus, the master craftsman of Olympus, became Zeus's tool for revenge. Summoned to his blistering forge, Hephaestus was ordered, "Fashion me a being of clay, flawless and utterly beguiling to all men." The other gods pitched in their own gifts: Aphrodite's mesmerizing beauty, Hermes' silver tongue, Athena's lessons in household arts. The result was Pandora, all gifted, a woman of almost otherworldly charm. Zeus saw to it that Pandora would marry Epimetheus, the unsuspecting brother of Prometheus. Although Prometheus had whispered, "Reject every gift from Zeus for the safety of mortals," Epimetheus failed to heed the warning. One glimpse of Pandora, and his reason drowned in a tide of enchantment. Their union was set, and during the celebrations, Pandora was entrusted with a massive jar. She was told, firmly, never to open it. No matter what, don't even lift the lid an inch. At first, Pandora fought her curiosity. She told herself she could handle the suspense, that knowledge of its forbidden contents wasn't worth the risk. But the daily sight of that sealed lid gnawed at her. Was it brimming with priceless treasures? Perhaps it contained cosmic secrets. Or maybe it was empty, only a test of loyalty. Such uncertain wonders churned inside her head, leaving her restless, anxious, and increasingly fixated on the jar. Eventually, her curiosity proved too powerful. One day she approached it, heart thundering, palms damp. She touched the lid, half resolved to stop. Yet some voice inside her mind whispered, "Just a peek, just one tiny look." With trembling hands, she lifted it, if only by a crack. And in that instant, the contents exploded outward. Imagine a swarm of horrors fleeing their cage. Disease slithered free, war rattled like chained metal. Despair circled like a raven. Misfortunes of every kind burst forth to scatter around the world. The impact was immediate and brutal. Before this moment, humans had lived like innocent children of the earth, mostly protected from relentless hardships. Now, plagues devoured families, storms tore up harvests, and distrust festered among neighbors. Civilization would never be free of these new afflictions. Rather than petty irritations, they were life-altering curses, unstoppable once released into the mortal realm. Seeing the ruin unleashed, Pandora slapped the lid shut in terror, too late to reverse the calamity. She sank to the floor, overwhelmed by guilt. An internal voice must have screamed, "I caused this. I doomed everyone." She wrapped her arms around the jar, tears streaming down her cheeks. wishing she could roll back time or plead with Zeus for mercy. But the jar felt cold, hollow. She believed it was empty now, that every horror had been freed. Then she heard a faint rustling inside. Something fluttered, soft and delicate. Curious again but trembling, she lifted the lid. Out flew Elpis, Hope. Unlike the raging monsters and afflictions, Hope was small, almost meek, yet it was radiant in its own gentle way. Some scholars argue that Hope might be another curse. Others read it as a final, merciful gift. In the mainstream telling, it's the sole comfort that remains for mortals, offsetting the countless evils with the possibility, however slender, that tomorrow may be brighter. The ramifications were enormous. Through Pandora's action, humans now had to confront suffering, but also possessed a resource to endure it. Without hope, the new onslaught of miseries might have crushed their spirits. With hope, they found the resilience to resist despair. That delicate balance shaped the human experience from that day forward. Unending hardships met by unending perseverance. For Zeus, the episode confirmed the gulf between gods and mortals. By punishing humankind, he asserted that divine prerogative triumphs over mortal ambition. Prometheus's gift of fire had put godlike power into human hands. The release of these evils reminded everyone that mortals walk on a perilous tightrope. As soon as they overstep, a god can fling them down into the darkest depths. Pandora became the living embodiment of that check on mortal pride. Why a jar, not a box? In original Greek texts, the container is referred to as a pythos. These huge ceramic vessels typically stored wine, oil, or grains. Early translators mistranslated the word into box, probably because boxes were more common in certain European contexts. But a pythos would be massive, large enough to hold an abundance of monstrous entities. That detail underscores the colossal scale of suffering it contained. This wasn't a dainty chest of mischief. It was a big, daunting vessel, nearly impossible to overlook. Pandora herself has sparked endless debates in mythological discourse. Some interpret her story as cautionary, implying that feminine curiosity brought about disaster. Others see it as a condemnation of mortal curiosity in general. Ultimately, her agency is entangled with divine manipulation. The gods created her to be curious, set her in front of that jar, and predicted the outcome. She's simultaneously a victim of the gods' design and the agent who triggers humanity's downfall. Yet there's a glimmer of tragedy around Pandora. She never intended to harm anyone. She was, in essence, new to the world, naive, brimming with wonder. Her intentions weren't cruel. She only wanted to satisfy the relentless urge the gods had baked into her nature. If she spoke in her own defense, perhaps she'd cry, "Why did they gift me with curiosity if not to use it?" That internal conflict between her created purpose and the devastating consequences lends her tale a deep pathos. From then on, mortals carried the weight of pain, disease, and heartbreak. They needed cunning, collaboration, and invention to survive in a harsher world. Fire remained theirs, thanks to Prometheus, but it came paired with countless woes. And at the bottom of it all lay hope, a mild but persistent spark. Was it divine pity? Was it an afterthought? The myths never clarify. Still, it allowed mortals to keep building cities, forging families, and seeking progress, even under the shadow of inescapable sorrows. Historians note the myth's immense cultural impact. Ancient Greeks used it to explain why life is riddled with suffering. They used it as a cautionary tale, reminding themselves that one act of disobedience could reshape entire civilizations. At religious festivals, the story highlighted Zeus's supreme power and the danger of challenging the gods. Even to this day, Pandora's Box stands as shorthand for any action that triggers irreversible consequences. Yet, if the jar had never been opened, humanity might have remained sheltered, oblivious, and ultimately stagnant. Instead, we find ourselves forging art and science to cope with ailments, shaping moral frameworks to handle betrayal, and learning empathy to unite against common misfortune. In that strange way, Pandora's Act gave rise to both the darkest chapters in human history and our greatest triumphs against adversity. And so we're left with a stark image, a colossal jar, carefully sealed by the gods, entrusted to a curious woman. A moment of weakness that unleashed plagues and heartbreak upon the world. Yet from the very bottom of that jar, nearly overlooked, came hope. Small but essential, a flicker that refuses to die in the face of endless misery. Because for mortals, sometimes that flicker is everything.